get up to 8, 9 G's and everything is turned from the color to gray to all of a sudden it closes in from the pressure of everything and it closes out. What is our vision like? Hey, let me tell you this morning, it don't matter how many G's it is, God's vision never changes. No matter how much pressure you put on Him, Braden, his vision never changes. Me and Case were watching a documentary on the Thunderbirds. I never knew this. Most of you that are a lot smarter than your pastor. Just sitting where you're at, you're pulling 1 G. That's basically, it's gravity. It's your weight. And each time it goes up and all this stuff, and when you get to like 8 G's and stuff like that, it's like a ton. That's what it is of pressure. And everything, this talks about the blood flow and everything's going to your feet and everything just shrinks and your vision just goes away from that pressure. Let me tell you this morning, none of that affects God. None of that affects God this morning. You can throw it all on Him this morning. It doesn't matter what you've done this morning. God knows your heart. God can cleanse that heart this morning. God can make that black heart white as gold. I've never figured out how He does that. He can make it white as snow. Not white as gold. I don't know why that come out. But He can make that black heart just as white as snow. And I've never understood that. How He knows, Brother Kevin, what I've done. And yet He still chose to save me. What is it you've done this morning? I want to go ahead and let you know before we get to the last one. It doesn't matter what you've done this morning. It doesn't matter. I don't think anybody in here is a murderer. I don't think so. If you are, God can forgive you. It doesn't matter what it is. But let me tell you something. Even if there's a murderer that's sitting in here, even that little person that's sitting in here, and I think Brother Elliot may be the youngest one sitting in here. No, Brother Case is up there. Even that little white lie you tell mom and dad, it's just as bad as that murder. But you know what? God still forgives it. God sees the bigger picture. God knows our heart. And you know what? When I say God knows our heart, God knows if you really mean it or not. He knows it. You know, I'm going to get to the last point in just a second, but we live in a world that is judged by what we see. For whatever reason, we're judged by what we see. We judge everything by what we see. And a lot of times we're mistaken. We look at things and then we realize that we're dead wrong. Any of you ever had that happen? Any of you ever looked at somebody and realized, I was wrong on that one? You judge them. I was sitting, I'm a people watcher, and there was a person not the same color of my skin. There was a black person that was there, and they weren't talking to me. I don't even know if they paid any attention. But when their language come out of their mouth, it blew my mind. It wasn't bad language. It was just a different language. They were speaking in tongues for those of us from South Georgia. But you know what, Brother Charles? I'd already judged what I was going to expect to come out of this gentleman's mouth. And then when it came out, I was like, oh, that was shocking. Why? Because I just judged by my eyes. We was on the shuttle bus, or public transportation in Victoria, British Columbia, and Kathy was her name, and she was, Miss Donna, you were taller than Kathy. Little Kathy was about this short. Brother Dan, if y'all don't know, he has a sticker on his head that says, talk to me. I'm the guy from Georgia to talk to. So they talked to him, and then all of a sudden, he introduces me as being the pastor, so my mouth has been shut, Brother Kevin. Well, then all of a sudden, I start, oh, I love your accent. What about his accent, bless God? No, I'm the one that gets the accent. And then she was amazed that she met a pastor. Oh, man, amazed that you met a pastor. But you just look, and you know, as she was sitting there thinking, well, this, you know, you never know. We judge people by the way they look. Every single one of us, our world is guilty of the fact of judging how people look by what we see. But I want you to remember that God evaluates our whole life. He sees through the outside appearance and sees this and here. See, you can fool the preacher this morning. You can fool the pastor. You can fool the deacons. You can fool the person sitting on the pew next to you this morning. You can fool them about your heart condition. But let me tell you something this morning. God knows your heart this morning. He sees our heart. Last thing this morning. In Matthew chapter number 6, verses 31 and 32. It says, "Therefore take no thought, saying, What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things." The last thing that I want to just talk to you about just for a few minutes is God sees our needs before we do. Aren't you thankful this morning that God sees our needs before we do? No better perfect illustration to give you this morning is to the fact of a child that asks for something and the parent already has it. Isn't that a great thing of just realizing that's how God is with us a lot of times? The child asks for certain things, and guess what? They're unaware that their parent already has that item that they're wanting. God is very similar to us. God has everything that we need. The biggest problem is this morning, we fail to ask Him this morning for the things that we want or the things that we need. A lot of times it's wants, but sometimes it's needs, and we fail to ask Him for it. You know, maybe sometimes you may be struggling financially, and a lot of us that do all types of things, whether we come to ask for it or things like that. You ever thought about just praying and asking God to help you? Now, I understand you need a job if you don't have a job. I understand things like that, but have you ever thought about just praying and asking God? God's got ways of answering. Sometimes it's kind of mind-blowing. It's like Brother Tony Evans. Some of you may or may not like Brother Tony Evans. He's an evangelist. He's out of Texas, and I love reading some of his books, and I love listening to him sometimes. And his son, who is now an adult, I can't think of what his son's name is. He played in the NFL just for a little while. But when little Tony, I'll just call him little Tony, was growing up, he always would come up to Brother Tony Evans, and he'd say, "Daddy, I want a nickel." And obviously, you can tell that's a long time ago. There ain't a child in this room or a child up in children's church that asks for a nickel. Hey, my son's 13 years old. It ain't Dad, let me have $1. Let me have $5. No, it's Dad, let me have $20. What? $20? I realized after being on this trip that people like food, and I'm not saying that by no means. That's a story not in the pulpit right there. You can't even buy a McDonald's Happy Meal in Canada, Brother Larry, for $20. It's crazy. But now kids these days, they don't ask for a nickel. I know bless y'all's heart, it'll be $100 by the time they get my son's age. But they ask $20. Dad, let me have $20. And the thing that just blows my mind is the fact that Case will have something. Case, I'm going to give Gammy some money because I got her credit card number to do this. Brother Larry, growing up, I didn't even know a credit card existed. I really didn't. I'm only 50 years old. But as a little boy, I didn't know that. Now, kids, but anyway, long story short, little Tony was asking Braden, he'd ask his daddy for a nickel. And he'd say, son, he'd give him $1. Miss Deidre, you know what, little Tony, Daddy, I don't want $1, I want a nickel. Daddy, I just want a nickel. Son, you want this? Here's $1. No, Daddy, I want a nickel. You know what? We're the same way when it comes to God. We pray for this. God, give me this. Just this little thing. And God's standing out in front of you and want to give you all this stuff. No, God, I don't want that. You say, God ain't never done that. How many of you have asked Him? Now, I ain't preaching pie in the sky and stuff like that, but I'm simply asking. We'll go ask other people and other people. How about simply asking God? He knows our needs before we know our needs. He knows our wants before we know our wants this morning. Hey, why don't we seek God instead of seeking after man this morning? God sees what we want this morning. We're all caught up about what we can see right in front of our face. Right in front of our face. One of the things my dad taught me growing up driving It wasn't ever to just look right in front of you. Most of you know you're always looking what's out in front of you. Always looking. Don't swerve after for an animal. I'm sorry, you animal lovers, but I'm going to tell you, all of my young drivers in the church, I'm going to give some parenting advice. Parents, don't get mad at the pastor when I say this, but Brother Braden, don't swerve for an animal. Hit it. Sorry, Miss Tanya. Caden, don't swerve. Put your brakes on if it's a cow. But no, seriously, we all get focused on right here. Dad used to always tell me, son, pay attention to what's out in front of you. It's the same thing in our walk here on this earth. Unfortunately, we get caught so much up in the things that are right in front of us, we fail to realize what is out in the future. God sees what we don't this morning. The best advice I can give you is stay right here. Stay in church. Let God show you that He knows what you don't. I know the title of the message is God sees what we don't, but God knows what you don't either. Not only does He see what we don't, He knows what we don't this morning. As we stand this morning, Miss Donna comes to get us, just play us a song this morning.